on that one soon now. You ready? Okay. Welcome to another edition. Fright night. I'm kidding. Okay, I would like to call this meeting to order. Are there any announcements? John, who's with us electronically?
Because nobody is.
We're not that popular. Okay, all right then. We can go ahead, before we approve the agenda, Counselor, you had an item for us, please?
Yeah, and in front of you, you just have a license proposal, so I'd like to add that as an attorney item.
Okay. So attorney. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll add that. I'll keep that on the side. And then, Mr. Engineer, you had item L. You wanted that item pulled outright. That's not for discussion. That's completely removed.
Mr. President, I'd like it pulled for discussion.
Oh, very good, sir. Okay, we'll do that then. Okay, pending that. And then I have another item here that came to my attention. Mr. Michael Klein.
Mr. President, I believe that could be talked about under item engineer, item number 33, the MOU with Watershed.
Okay. Okay, the MOU. Oh, right. Okay, when I bring that up. Oh, here it is. Okay. Excuse me, folks. Very good. Okay, with that said, there's nothing else that I'm aware of or anybody's aware of. I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
It is approved. Public forum. Anybody wishing to speak, address the board. I could ask you to come forward, folks. I believe I know why you're here. We're going to talk about this property over on Legion Pond. Very good. So we will save that for, if it's all right with you,
Yeah.
for just a little bit. We'll try not to bore you too much until then, and we'll follow up on that. Okay? So I thank you. If there's nothing else, let's move to the consent calendar. Do any of the managers have any items they'd like to pull outside? Yes, sir.
I'd like to pull item R, the treasurer's report.
Very good. Okay. Okay, are there any other items? Mr. Bill?
No.
Okay. Vice President Pereira? Councilman Jerry John? Nothing else. Okay. I would like to pull item L and item Q. And item Q is, I want pulled for a very, very brief discussion. So with that said, I would like to make a motion to approve the consent calendar for all the items except for items L, Q, and R. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
It is approved. Let's move to item L. That's our first one. Mr. Engineer?
Mr. President, thank you for pulling up the consent calendar.
Of course.
After more discussion with engineer for the project, determined that there's actually some low entry or doors being proposed at the structure. And because of those doors, the project does not conform currently to the Watershed District's minimum elevation standard. Minimum elevation standard, so they need to be at least 2 feet higher than the some areas under your flood elevation and 1 foot above the emergency overflow elevation. They're not, so they're planning to redesign, doing some minor redesign work to either do a combination of lowering the flood elevation or raising the building elevation. And so I a distributed suggested condition to add to the permit. And that is that prior to construction, updated plans demonstrating that the proposed structure meets the Valley Branch Watershed District's Rule 5, Standard 2, minimum building elevation standard shall be submitted to the BBWB engineer for approval.
So, with that said, is this something that we can table pending what you're going to receive, or do you recommend, with your consultation, that it's all right to go ahead with this?
Mr. President, I think you have either option.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that you approve the permit with this condition tonight.
Gentlemen, any,
I have a separate issue with L as well.
please?
And, approving it tonight with the condition is fine with me. I made a note that I didn't see any indication of where the plowed snow will be stored. And this looks like a good candidate to ask for that information, even if it's only educational. I think that we need to get into the process of, with these kinds of permits, that we look at that as one of the issues that the applicant provides us with.
Good heads up. You feel that this is something that they can take care of pending our approval here, or can we wait for that information to be gathered?
Mr. President, they could submit that at the same time as submitting the changes for the minimum floor elevation, so I think it could be approved tonight.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen? Rick, would you? Yes, sir.
I just drove by there just on the way here, and there's like steel girders sticking up on here already, so I wonder if they're down to just a pipe option, maybe. I don't know. There was more there than I thought it was, than I expected to see, but whatever.
But it's good enough. Okay.
Mhm.
Rick, would you like to make a
Sure.
motion?
Move the approval of permit number 2025-26, with two provisions. One is that the elevation be adjusted to meet Valley Branch requirements, and that be approved by the engineer, and that the applicant also provide information about the location of snow storage when snow is plowed.
Very good.
Would you like to suggest also that they, with that snow storage, that they consider minimizing chlorine
Minimizing.
applications?
Yeah, minimizing
Just
yeah,
so,
drainage.
right, so they
minimizing the amount
understand
of
the
drainage.
reason why
Yeah.
we're asking for that.
Thank you.
Okay, I will second that motion. It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
I
Aye,
Aye.
Aye.
that is approved. Item L is approved. Now we'll move on to item Q, which is what I had a little concern with. Gentlemen, this is not really a big deal, but I want everybody to be aware, because this is going to come up eventually as a budgetary item, and also with, I'm not trying to be a bad guy again, but this looks like, without examining it superficially, it appears to be a landscaping project that we're helping landscape. And so this is something that I want the managers to give some consideration to, because this is going to be an issue in the very near future and may become part of our budgetary items for scrutiny for our 2026 budget. Otherwise, yes, sir.
I had a similar concern on this one, so I guess what I mean, they're following our program.
Yes.
I would like to suggest maybe we revisit the sideboards that we have on our program for maybe a minimum area or something to so we get a little more benefit from those projects and don't end up with landscaping on very small areas.
Yes, sir.
So that's just a suggestion maybe for future consideration.
Yep, I completely agree, and I always put those things under the bang for our buck banner. So at this point, I just wanted some awareness, and we can address that or visit that certainly before the end of the year. And I will discuss this with our engineer and see if we can make that an item. Does that seem all right to you gentlemen as well?
Yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact,
Yes, sir.
I've made a note for when we have our discussion with Greg, that there's a couple of places in the 2025 plan, 10-year plan, where we talk about it, and maybe there's some things that we can do to refine that process a little bit. I'll talk about it then, but just so people think of it.
Good point, sir. Yeah, I had some items for Mr. Williams as well. So with that said, I would like to make a motion at this time to approve item Q, the $500 plant grant for the Shore Native Plant Grant approval. Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 It is approved. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Let's move on.
The
Rick, the treasurer's report?
treasurer's report.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make note for people that, for the managers, that the final item listed for payment this month is the Western National Insurance, and it's missing the description information.
Oh.
We've made correction to that, and that's available if somebody would like it. I can email it out or whatever.
That's okay.
Okay.
Western National Insurance, that's, that went up from last year, right?
Yes, it did.
Significantly, or, because I don't recall what it was last year.
I don't recall last year's, but I thought there were a couple of issues. One was terrorism related, and I forgot what the other one was.
Terrorism at the Valley Branch Watershed. I'm not trying to make fun, but I'd like to think that's far-fetched, but whatever.
Mhm.
Things happen.
Hopefully it is.
Yeah, hopefully it's not.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just a quick comment. I'd like to thank Rick for facilitating us getting the invoices sent to us. I find that very helpful to me
If we need,
prior to seeing, the treasurer's report being approved. But especially John's information that they put a lot of work into, see what Bar's been doing all month.
yeah, we want to know what Bar's been up to.
Yeah, keep an eye on this guy.
Rick, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Heartfelt.
So
Yes, sir.
I move to approve the treasurer's report for May.
I would second that motion.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Before we move off the
Yes, sir.
consent agenda, I just have one quick procedural question. When we have this many items on the consent agenda and they're listed A through R, I always mix up the paperwork when I'm going through these things because they're never labeled on the paper themselves, A through R. Is there any way where we can actually label them so it's easier to find?
Magic marker? Okay, I'm kidding, but I know, I see his point. We can do that.
Okay.
Colors, color coordinated. Thank you, sir. Yeah, you're right. I get befuddled too, and sometimes
Yeah, because you're looking for names and addresses and stuff. And yeah.
I do cross references also, and this is not a complaint, but just an observation. This one's a little different from what I'm used to. What happened?
As project managers, as you may recall, everything posted to the Watershed District's website needs to be ADA compliant.
Oh,
And
okay.
previous version of the agenda was not ADA compliant, so this agenda is ADA compliant.
Okay, very good, sir. Perfect. You can't beat that. All right, with that said, let's move on to our next item. Updates and requests from partners, volunteers, citizens advisory committee. I just have one particular item on that. Thank you, John, very much for sending the application. We may have a new CAC member on board, one Mr. Joseph Brockman in Cloverdale Lake. We'll see how that goes. We provided him with an application, and we'll see if he goes for it.
Mr. President, he did submit it, and it'll be a discussion item for the next meeting.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. He is indeed.
Oh, God.
Yeah, I got more for you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Thank you for reminding me. I was gonna bring it up too. Well, if he comes here next time, we'll put him on the hot seat. All right, now. Let's move on to this item right now. Okay. Business and reports, our administrator engineer. John, please lead us into this.
Mr. President, managers, including your packets, a memo and a letter from the property owner at 2764 Legion Avenue North in Montgomery. You may recall that the Watershed District completed a detailed study with the Army Corps of Engineers to look at various landlocked basins in the district and how to best manage them. If it would be to create an outlet from these basins or to purchase full homes or some combination.
Right.
Part of that study included Army Corps of Engineers surveying details of homes that have been identified as being potentially low. So they surveyed the low entry elevation and other details if they could. The home in question was surveyed, and it was found that its low entry elevation is approximately 1 foot higher than the calculated 100-year flood elevation for Legion Pond. The 4 homes directly north of this home were surveyed and found to be below the 100-year flood elevation of Legion Pond. There's some cartoon drawings within the packet that show how the Watershed District went about prioritizing small homes. So the district chose to give high priority to the homes that had low entry elevations that are below the 100-year flood elevation, and then gave lower priority to those that are above the 100-year flood elevation. So this home would be considered a lower priority home under that criteria.
Okay.
Yes, sir. There is a figure,
Everybody's familiar with that.
of the, excuse me?
Everybody's familiar with that. Everybody has seen that. I have a comment directly related to that.
That there is a figure, it included a snippet of a map of the area that shows that most of this parcel is mapped within the FEMA 100-year flood elevation.
Yeah.
And the landowner did submit a letter with several photos that shows all the flooding that has occurred on the site. There's one thing I want to point out is that this area was connected to city sewer last year, a year and a half ago. So it's no longer on septic system. The last part of the memo includes the current purchase policy of the Watershed District.
Now, just one quick question relating to these folks having this connected to the sewer. This no way is connected to drainage in any way, shape, or form. Assuming flooding takes place, that somehow the system can mitigate some of that flooding.
No.
No.
The sanitary sewer, it's the home is now served by a city of Lake Elmo sanitary sewer.
Yes.
Rather than an individual septic system.
So if the water gets high enough and it gets to the toilet, they could just keep flushing. That's what
I think that would be considered I&I.
The council wouldn't like that.
They wouldn't like
Okay,
it.
no, okay, sorry about that. Okay, now. Mrs. Fisher, is that who I'm addressing? Mrs. Fisher, thank you for attending. Are you Mr. Fisher?
I am Judy's
So this is
son.
my mother.
the original builder of the
Mrs.
property.
Toft,
Yes.
thank you for attending. Yes, sir.
And my brother.
Okay. Mr. Toft?
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Fisher, would you like to address us?
Yeah, we're.
Share some information, please.
Sure. So my parents built the home in 1972 when it was just a field. And 1980, what Legion Pond was born and flooded and I mean, I was so young. I don't have all the details, but I do know that the neighbors kind of joined forces and built a berm to try and keep the water at bay. It was a temporary fix, it didn't work all the time. I mean, when there's heavy rain and, you know, like our property, it's just a pool now. It just collects all the water on high flooding. Things I remember is, sorry, I'm gonna get really emotional here.
That's okay, but
Um,
try not to make me cry, 'cause I'm a big baby.
I remember as a kid,
Mhm.
just being woken up in the middle of the night saying, you need to watch your sister. We have to go down and help Zetterlands and Colliards and Petersons
Yeah.
bucket out their basements, as ours was a little bit of water, but it was nothing like, and all the proofs, you know, we have all that, but, I remember nights where my dad was just sitting out in the rain, just sobbing uncontrollably. He had no control, and these people, they tried everything. They did all the right things. They wrote letters to government officials, to whoever they needed to, and they just never got the real help. It was always a little Band-Aid fix, or they'd take it upon themselves. You know, and one of the pictures shows like my dad saved every document around this issue, and it was this handwritten log of neighbors, you know, 2 a.m, greasing pumps and doing all these different things to try and do what they needed to do. So we are here to ask to be included as a high school math teacher.
Oh, very good.
And I think, is your daughter Lily? Do you have a Lily?
Yeah.
I was your teacher. As a high school math teacher.
Was she a good kid?
Yes!
Oh, thank you.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I was gonna get an anxiety attack.
No, gosh, no,
Okay.
sweetheart.
Thank you.
But when as a math teacher, I know that numbers tell one side of the story and the humans tell the other side. And unfortunately, my parents had to abandon the house in 1986. And eventually they turned it into a rental property for, you know, people that they could afford it. They never overcharged, they never did, you know, they just wanted someone to live there and inhabit because we can't sell it. And our thing right now is if the homes are, you know, whatever is in store for the 4 homes, where does that leave us? How do we sell our home in good faith, knowing the deep history of the past 40 years? You know, we lost my dad to Alzheimer's, and, you know, we're trying to take care of our mom, and we would like to either, I mean, the house is vacant right now.
Understand.
So we're just asking for help on a permanent solution, whether it's acquiring the home or something that we can, with good faith, sell it to another family to enjoy.
I could argue.
Yes, sir.
I could argue it was ground zero for that whole neighborhood. I mean, half of our front yard right now is the turnaround. When that happened, we were on the corner, the end of the dead end. My dad, I could say without hesitation, he lost years of his life because of the stress, mentally and physically and financially. It would be the ugly duckling without being included. And it would be tough to sell, couldn't sell.
This emotional component is important because it gives us a more rounded understanding of what we have to deal with. Clearly, you're aware of our constraints and our policy and, you know, our engineering department tells us what we can and can't do, and our counselor enforces it. So with that said, before I make a comment, is there anything that the managers would like to say?
Just one question, because in addition to just the flood water coming up, it sounded like from your letter that the foundation itself was compromised also
Yeah,
over time, and I just want to make sure that isn't lost in the discussion.
Thank you, sir. No.
There's issues there, even beyond the flood water coming up, so.
Gentlemen,
Well, you know, I like how you said that math was part of the story, but no math, we call it the universal language, right? But there's always some ambiguity around that as well. So if I'm reading this correctly, they're like 1 foot off of not being included, and I mean, we could be off by 1 foot. Engineering isn't, you know, and the way floods happen or whatever aren't perfectly predictable either,
okay,
right?
right, that's correct.
We've
No,
got
it's not
binders to say that 1 foot is off.
Yeah.
I can't believe my
Yes, sir.
dad saved all this stuff.
I'm glad he did.
Yes.
From your letters, and hopefully, not just letters from the what appears to be extensive evidence you have of what's been happening, that will certainly influence us because of what we need to do. So what I have understood is that, and this for me was the greatest selling point. We'll see if everybody is on board with that. If the managers look at this diagram, and I've been to the properties in the past, and I see the berm, and it's like a sort of Damocles, so to speak, just waiting for something to happen. Your property is also within that, and also very much within that potential flood zone.
Right.
So in my opinion, it seems like it will get flooded, okay? So for that reason alone, what we have to do is review what we're doing here and use the evidence that you've provided us with. I don't know if we're going to call on that. I feel strongly that this should happen, but I want to make sure that this is okay with our legal team and of course our engineer. But speaking personally, I don't see why we shouldn't. There's no problem in my mind. So,
I have
yes, sir.
a couple of questions. One
Please.
is, Mr. Engineer, do you know the history of Legion Pond? You referred to it as something, you were pretty young
It
at
was
that
a puddle
point.
when we moved in.
And
It
I,
wasn't even, it was
how did it,
a field with,
There was no water back there at all.
And then
when
the
we built
tri
house.
lakes, I don't know what the description of that, but the tri lakes really helped regulate it. I don't know I don't know how long ago that was. Some tri lakes,
oh,
I
You
don't-
can see the
I don't know what
pictures.
it's called,
So,
but that helped regulate it, but we've had problems, ever since.
And
Yeah, I
even-
wonder, I
even
was
now,
wondering
the-
how it appeared.
The backyard, you really can't even take a riding lawnmower back there. It's
yes,
soggy.
ma'am.
If I
It's a
recall
floating
correctly,
Or, okay.
Lake Elmo was significantly lower than Legion Pond. And, and so I don't know where that,
and some
where the
of,
water came from. It just to be good background for me in terms of making a decision.
so in some of the documents, talked about Lake Elmo, it also talked about when they redid Manning and the flow of the water down, that caused, they had it regulated, and then there was, I'm not an engineer, but they said something, it sounded like there was multiple reasons why Legion Pond was never fully regulated or, was always on the rise or formed.
Okay, that would be useful information as we go through this
I
process.
think so. I don't need any further convincing myself, but again, I'm one voice and we need to make sure that this is all, that falls within the law and with our policies, but
And then,
Well, if there's anything that you're interested in, I'm happy to,
we may call upon you for that. But
Yeah.
At
absolutely.
this point, what you're seeking is an appraisal. Yes, sir, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I definitely sympathize with your situation. Having said that, I do want to make sure, because when we have a program like this and you're using taxpayer funds to actually buy property, a lot of people might have an issue with that. So I just want to make sure that we have all our Ts and Qs, everything in order. And in regard to that, legal counsel, is this a situation where something like a variance request might be, so we can make a finding on the record why this might qualify, might be in order?
I actually thought about that. To me, a variance is really appropriate for the rules of the district more so than a policy, because this is, the district set a policy. I think the district has the authority to modify its policy, and rather than maybe modify the entire policy, have a very good rationale in the minutes and resolution, ultimately, if there's an offer made, as to why there's a deviation from the policy, what makes this qualify for that deviation.
Yeah.
So in essence, instead of having to bring forth a variance and show hardship and should be, because it's all about the rules.
Mhm.
And this really isn't about the rules. This is a separate policy. So I think the managers have that authority. I just think there needs to be a good record.
Okay.
I would also like to know if this is a situation where mitigation would be appropriate as opposed to tearing the whole building down. Maybe it isn't, but, it's certainly something in our due diligence would be worthwhile looking at and seeing if that is an option.
Excuse me, I'm a real estate agent.
Mhm.
Anybody who's thinking about buying that property will never buy it because of the history. You can Google Lake Elmo Pond and poof, they'd be crazy to buy that.
Mhm.
We're stuck.
Mhm.
We're stuck.
Mhm.
And, my dad was the fairest person in the world, and he just wants everybody to be fair.
We're making sure. Yes, sir.
Question for John. Do we have water level elevations on Legion Pond going back to the time period when this flooding was occurring? Or I'm just curious, with the way, I have a fairly good understanding of how 100-year flood elevations are set. But on this one, is there something of the historic record that could or was not taken into account?
So Secretary, these homes were constructed prior to Valley Branch Watershed District existing.
Sure.
And the drainage that was discussed is really Project 2007. So when Project 2007 was constructed, it modified the outlet to Lake Elmo. Legion Pond is very close to Lake Elmo, and so the groundwater influence of Lake Elmo is going to influence Legion Pond.
Yeah.
And so because Lake Elmo has a different outlet, it's more stable now. With all the drainage changes, it doesn't fluctuate quite as much as it used to. I think that's provided some stability with Legion Pond. However, when water levels are high, like 2019, 2020, then the groundwater of Lake Elmo doesn't allow Legion ponds to seep into the ground, so it just keeps on building.
Sure.
There is some information in the, I don't know if it's in the current 10-year watershed management plan. I know there's in the 1995-2005 watershed management plan, there's a detailed history of Legion Pond and some of the flooding that went on. The city of Lake Elmo has done some studies, and there was some back and forth between Valley Branch Watershed District and the city of Lake Elmo who should be responsible for Legion Pond. I can forward that information to the managers, and included in that would be also any history of water elevations that we have.
Sure.
I found a document from September 24th, 1980. saying it was 883, would that be, does that sound?
That's the,
Or is
Groundwater.
that the,
so that, there's been several studies done by the city of Lake Elmo and Valley Branch Watershed District on Region 1. The Army Corps of Engineers study with the districts that was completed at the end of 2023 or 2024. That takes into account climate and the current land use and current topography. So the 100-year flood elevation that was calculated with that, it's a number. It could be right or it could be wrong. And then I think it sounds like part of the problem that's existed also is maybe just wicking up so that even though the 100-year flood elevation at a certain point, the water can wick up into the foundation.
Right. Yeah, I've been back there a couple of times and it just, there's a berm and sometimes that water level has just been so close.
Yeah, well, we
Yeah,
did a tour.
that's right.
Well,
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
and just today we were out there and I noticed there's 3 huge trees on the berm. And then I've never seen this, but I don't know if it's electrical, wires, cable, telephone, they're hooked up to the house. And then it goes across the property and then follows the berm. Well, all the wires are weaved in between these 3 gigantic trees. And I said, okay, I go, Mom, that's a problem. And so I don't know if the removal of these trees to keep the wires from would affect the berm, the foundation of that berm. And so that,
The berm, as you said, was constructed by the residents. It's not
yes,
it's not what the Army Corps of
Exactly.
Engineers would
Right.
consider
it was a
certified.
makeshift,
It was an
So
emergency
if
makeshift.
it's a
Yeah.
certified berm, then it usually has like a core that's built on clay to keep.
yeah, this was just
This is just
dirt hauled
doing this as
into,
quickly as you could.
70
to-
truckloads.
Okay.
When was the last time the 100-year flood elevation was recalculated for this area?
With that core study that was completed December 2023.
We have had a bit of rain lately and we don't know how things are gonna go. We always knock on the particle board, make sure that things get better or they remain stable. I want to tell you something, and I think you know what the answer is. You know, that you can go home and sleep well this evening, so we just want to make sure, and all is well, that's where we're headed, okay? So at this point, we are most definitely going to consider this.
And like Erica said, if you need more information, he's got tons of
or
it.
if you're curious, it's
This is top,
absolutely fascinating.
you had me on thought.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Mrs. Fisher, thank
appreciate
you.
that, thank you. Thank
I
you.
will tell Lily I spoke to you.
Yes,
And it's good, she's a good kid,
she is.
most of the time.
Well, if there's anything else you need from us, please,
Mr. Todd,
please
thank
reach
you.
out. Please reach out.
We will indeed, we will be in touch, okay?
Thank you.
So, you don't want to enjoy the rest of the evening with us? Feel free to.
Hockey's on.
Yeah, that's right. Edmonton, are they gonna, is it gonna be a fight?
I don't
Hockey game will
think, I don't
break
think
out?
Edmonton's got it in them.
Yeah, what happened?
We'll see.
Yeah, what a fight.
Hey, we appreciate your time.
Yeah.
for sure.
Yes.
Really, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Fred, just to wrap this up, I'd like to have some direction of what we're asking John or somebody else. Where are we going with this?
Here's where we're
Because,
going with this.
Yeah, and so I guess we ask John to evaluate options that we might have or pathways that we might have as a, but well, both more importantly, council on
Yes.
this, pathways forward that we might have to include this as a higher priority and bring that back to us at the next meeting.
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Engineer, you have your marching orders. Please follow through and consider the options that we have. And of course, we are considering the ordering of an appraisal. So we will also ask council to make sure that everything's on the up and up, pending that and the consideration of our options.
Well, are you wanting an appraisal order, or is that one of the, because that would be one of the options that would be included on that?
That's
And
going,
then you would make
yeah.
the determination?
that's going to be an
Okay,
option.
I just wanted to make sure
Yeah, yeah.
I'm clear on
Oh,
the
of course.
direction. Okay.
She keeps our feet to the fire, so. So yeah, thank you, sir, for bringing that up here. That's where we're at.
Yep.
Very good.
Perfect, thank you,
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you for attending. Thank you, Mrs. Thomas. Everybody,
thank you.
have a beautiful evening.
Yes, you too, thank you.
All right. Okay. Yeah, thank you for making that square done, because we want to make sure I don't want to tell them what's going to happen. I just want them to know that we're considering all of this. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the watershed management plan. Mr. Williams, Greg, join us.
Thank you. What was included in your packet this week was the first half of section 2, which is a new section that you haven't seen before. It is the narrative of the goals and issues. You may recall that you've seen the draft goals before, you provided input on the draft goals, then the plan TAC also provided their input on the draft goals, and they came back to you. But those were just the goals and issue statements standalone. This section includes some text that's intended to provide a little bit more of context to those issue statements, like essentially, why is it a problem? Why does the district care about it? The section is organized according to the issue areas of the 6 priority resource issues that you prioritize: surface water quality, and then water quantity, flood risk, and climate resilience as high priority, stormwater management, groundwater, and wetlands as medium priority, uplands and natural areas as low priority. And then we also added goals at a later date related to education and engagement, and then your kind of organizational operations. This text that was included in the packet is really just the first half of that. It's the high priority issues, and then groundwater and stormwater management as medium priority. Just that's what was done at the time, and didn't want to necessarily overwhelm you with too much content at once. The way this section is organized is that each section has like the brief, like the 1-sentence issue statement of why this is a problem. Then there's the narrative that provides the additional context, the measurable goals, and then there's a list of the district's tools that are available to address this issue. If you recall, when we talked about the implementation section, that has a description of the types of things that you do, not necessarily specific projects, but the different ways, the things that are in your tool belt to address these issues, whether it be your rules and permit program, whether it be studies, whether it be capital projects, whether it be education. And so for each of these issues, within that section, there's a description of kind of the most relevant tools to address those issues. Noting that, you know, some tools kind of address all, like education could address every issue indirectly or to varying degrees, but sometimes it's not the most critical to address that issue. And so in that case, the tools don't necessarily list every tool, but the ones that are most important. And then the description of those tools, also the idea is they'll cross-reference the implementation section. So with that said, I don't want to walk you through in too much specificity each one of these, but if you have any comments on either the structure of this section, the content that's included?
Some of the same. I have one item beginning with, if this is of any relevance, on section 2.1, surface water quality. On the bullets here, recreational opportunities, is my opinion, that should be at the bottom, below infiltration and groundwater recharge, not on top. Not a big deal, I just. And then pending anything any of the other managers have, I do have one more item that I was curious about.
That means that they don't want to train the dog in Westlake next door.
I do. That sucker needs to. Where the heck is it? Oh, I believe this is under the chloride. The chloride section, here it is, that's 2.1.2. Okay. In looking at this, the issue statement and reading this and the loading goals, help me, but I have not seen the word, and again, I don't know what the significance is, but I didn't see the word prevention. And so I think that somehow it needs to be incorporated as many times as possible, if possible, because we know what happens once it's there. Okay. Sir. Rick?
The item that I mentioned earlier
Right.
appears on page 11, that's goal 1C, and also on page 16 is 7D. And those two items, refer to what we're doing, I think, with, with the grants that we're providing people. And it may be worth a little more thought in terms of, is this where we want to go with it? We're kind of, in some ways, locking ourselves into a 10-year plan.
Right.
I think it's probably general enough and that we're okay, but, in light of, this issue continuing to kind of keep coming up, it's something that might be worthwhile having a discussion on. I don't know if that's now or if that's at some point.
And how can we implement the discussion? As part of a regular meeting, as part of a workshop, as part of a subcommittee meeting? Input from the different managers to Mr. Williams to Greg about this?
Maybe
think?
the part that is critical is, do we have enough flexibility here if we change the rules that we have for providing grants? Is this going to restrict us in some way in terms of what we might think about doing? Would we be basically violating what it is that our goals are? We're not achieving those goals then. But is there something in between that extreme and where we are locked in the other direction, and that is we have to provide the grants? How do we maintain some flexibility in this? And that gives a little flexibility in terms of when we have that discussion.
Okay.
That's a good point. I mean, the inclusion of goal 1C, which is to support small-scale residential nutrient and sediment load reduction through cost-share projects funded by VBWD. That's based kind of on your current, the way your current grant program is set up. And the goal itself specifically references nutrient and sediment load reduction. So I think the intent relative to this goal is that those projects would be focused on nutrient reduction or sediment reduction. Then, as you noted, 7D, it's also increased the use of climate resilient practices among public and private landowners. Now that doesn't specifically reference a grant program, but that's one way to get at that. And that's a little bit, I would say a little bit broader in scope than specifically the nutrient and sediment reduction. I mean, for example, like turf grass conversion could be something that is a climate resilient practice that could be covered under 7D, for example. Yeah. So it's a little bit specific in 1C in that it's focused on nutrient and sediment. That could be, we could revise that to be more focused on, pollutant reduction in general versus those specific pollutants, or potentially expand to say, nutrient and sediment load reduction among other environmental benefits if you wanted increased flexibility. Or the other approach is that the goal could be revised to be closer to 7D in that you're like 7D is, the goal is to increase the use of those practices among private and public landowners. You could have something like 1C where instead of specifically referencing a cost share program, that the goal is to increase the use of practices by residents to reduce sediment loading or nutrient loading. It doesn't necessarily reference the cost share program specifically. So in that sense, it's like maybe you're only providing education about it, or maybe you're only providing technical assistance to folks who come in with issues as opposed to sending money at it.
But it still would allow us to do.
You can still do it through the grant
continue
program,
doing
even
it
if the goal language does not specifically reference it. The plan does, the plan per statute, if you have grant programs, the plan does have to reference them and describe them at least generally. Like you said, the policy itself is something that your grant policy is something you can change outside of the plan update process. That's something you can do on your own. And I think we've taken care in writing up the grants programs in the implementation section such that they are not overly specific. And then they point the reader to the website. That said, if you do have that discussion before the plan is adopted, you should make sure that that's still aligned. But if you prefer this goal to be revised so that it does not specifically reference the cost share, and then cost share becomes an avenue by which you can achieve this goal, but not necessarily included in the goal text.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, as long as we have a little bit of flexibility.
I want to say make it vague enough so that we
Yeah.
have that flexibility, right?
I mean,
I don't mean.
I certainly support, the goal in 1C and the specifics here, but I think we need to do it in a coordinated way that looks at everything, because this seems like, the key, personally,
Yeah.
like that's the key issue
So
that
only
we're
gonna
trying
handle
to
it.
address,
Yeah.
and some of the others are maybe less critical.
Yes.
But having some flexibility is useful. Don, you look like you have a comment.
Are you sure, Don?
I like Greg's language, just opening it up more to all pollutants than just nutrient and sediment loads there. I think that does give us more wiggle room, and
Yep.
And I mean, like with the chloride, that wasn't even on anybody's radar,
Yeah.
10 years ago, 20 years ago, or whatever. Now it is. I mean, it's just nice to have more of a catch-all going forward in case something else comes up.
So you suggesting a catch-all in place of chloride?
No, not in place of chloride. I'm talking about goal 1C, I think Greg was talking about, rather than a small-scale residential nutrient and sediment or reduction of pollutants through, just pollutants generally. That's what I was thinking,
Yes.
which would encompass chloride and
Yep.
everything else.
Absolutely. Very good.
So I just want to clarify, I'm getting consensus here on two edits. One, broadening the applicability to include other pollutants. and two, removing specific reference to the cost share program from the goal itself.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have, I have another item. Okay, this is gonna seem odd, but it struck me that way. This would be on page 11, 2.1.5. So, again, which is the worst, in anybody's opinion, anybody's professional opinion? Eurasian milfoil, zebra mussels, or curly leaf pondweed? Who's the worst?
Depends on the
Depends on
context.
that one, yeah.
Yeah, totally depends on.
Which is the one that's gonna cause a, well, here's what I'm getting at. That Eurasian milfoil should be named first, a curly leaf pondweed second, and zebra mussels third. And explaining if these are our primary or most troublesome aquatic invasive species. You know, just mixing something around. I don't know if there's anything to that, but that's how that struck me
Sure.
when I was, reviewing it, what would I have done? And again, it's not that important. If anybody thinks it is, please feel free to add, but,
If there's 3 points on the triangle and you've got each related, so you've got one end is just a purely recreational impact,
yeah,
maybe a water quality impact, and then like a lake ecology or plant community impact. They're all in different points on that. I'd say zebra mussels, potentially could improve water quality because they filter dissolved pollutants, but significantly impact recreation, whereas Eurasian water milfoil can impact recreation because it's harder to navigate through, but also can just kind of choke out other plants, whereas curly leaf pondweed probably, it doesn't have as much of an impact on the native plant community as Eurasian water milfoil because it does die off quickly in the season, but it can contribute to algal loading. So they each have different pros and cons. I think in terms of highest to lowest priority,
yes.
cumulatively based on what I know about the watershed, I'd probably list them as Eurasian water milfoil first, followed by curly leaf, followed by zebra mussels, but.
Zebra mussels in the wrong place can really mess up a food web. I mean, ecological impact of zebra mussels, for example, in Mille Lacs was really severe. And they fundamentally changed the food web, and not in a good way. But not everywhere, like in Lake Pepin, we probably might have, better water quality at times in Lake Pepin because of zebra mussels. The same thing can be said about Monoteo in Wisconsin.
I think the biggest problem with Pepin is sedimentation, right?
Oh, sure, right.
Yeah.
But, there's zebra mussels in Red Lake now, but the opinion is that there's not enough hard substrate up there for them to become large enough in biomass to change how an engine moves through that food web, but that's certainly not the case for other lakes.
There's also some formatting tricks we can do. We could just always default to alphabetical order, so it doesn't.
I didn't want to make.
We could also just kind of orient it so it's like, put it as one horizontally oriented graphic along the bottom half of the page or something like that, so there's not necessarily a top to bottom hierarchy.
It's good. I was just, nitpicking, okay, what about this? And there's clearly things that I would have to, that would require a bit more research on my behalf. And, that's why you guys are here. And so we're giving our input, but for the most part, I'm okay with it. Whatever you guys think seems fair because they're both, all three of these items are being addressed properly.
If you ask the bad guys I'm going to talk about Eurasian milfoil, they're going to give you a very glowing opinion of it.
Oh, yeah.
Created more bass habitat than
They do. They do. Yeah. I get that. Okay. Do any of the managers have any other items?
I do.
Slight aside, they did revise how the plant floristic quality index is calculated to give credit to invasive species, because previously they had been given a factor of 0, but
Yeah.
even the DNR recognizes that having invasive plants is better than having no plants for aquatic communities.
We actually did that work out at, when we were part of the fish IBI work, we did that work out in Shakatan, where the lake cleaned up and it had extremely dense plants, including curly-leaf palmer. So Ray Valley did this analysis and he showed that western Minnesota hypertrophic lakes that had curly leaf had way more northern pike and bluegills than the ones that didn't. Wow. Right. So again, it's very context specific, really is.
Okay. Greg?
Yeah, on page 13.
Okay.
I'm talking about the planning item under the tools. I don't know if it's appropriate there or if it's maybe in the text above to emphasize the need for coordination with other organizations. It seems like, for, the chloride problem to be addressed is going to really require that we work with municipalities, and to have that specifically in there somewhere, I think is useful. Maybe I think we've talked about this before, and maybe it's somewhere else.
Yeah, and I just made that edit today in the
Uh-huh.
implementation section,
Okay.
because I had to remember under the narrative description of the interagency and city coordination in the implementation section, the section that this tool reference will link to does specifically mention now coordination with cities to focus on, high density land uses for chloride
Yeah,
issues. So you're right, it should be referenced here as well.
even just one sentence in the text would be enough.
Good point. Okay. That's squared away.
Yes, thank you.
Are there any other items, anything else that the managers would like to bring to Greg's attention? Yeah, that's okay. I had something on 21, but that's okay. I guess. That was me. All right. Greg, what's our next step?
All right, so the next step is I'll make these changes to this section.
Okay,
I'll be working on the second half of this section, which will include the remaining issues. You can see that at your next meeting, at which point we'll have a complete section 2. The memo did include a table on the back of what you've seen and what you haven't seen yet, and kind of what the next steps are with respect to those. So the introduction is something that haven't been drafted yet. That'll come towards you, not at the next meeting. The next meeting will just be focused on the remaining issue statements or issue narrative. We've also scheduled a planned TAC meeting for June 26th to get input from the planned TAC, which is city and agency staff, on the narrative of the implementation section and the implementation schedule, which is what you reviewed at the previous 2 meetings in May.
all right,
That's where we're at right now.
very good. Okay, so any further questions or comments from any of the managers?
No formal action needed at this point. I will just take your edits and plug them on.
Mr. Inspector, anything, any thoughts? When you were in Germany, you didn't contemplate anything? That's wonderful, Greg. Thank you once again, as always.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for your input.
You're gonna leave us with remaining daylight.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
All right. Safe drive.
Hold it.
Thank you, sir. Okay. This one's squared away. Memorandum of understanding between Valley Branch Watershed District and the county. Here it is. Washington County regarding stormwater treatment for Washington County State and Highway 15 project. Okay. I think I know what's going on here. Is everybody aware? Does anybody have any comments? We've discussed this. We're essentially going to cover not the, what is it, the $10,000? They're covering $10,000.
Mr. President, on page 2, line 83 of the MOU.
Yes, sir.
They'd be paying $58,000.
Oh, I'm sorry, 10.4%. I was off. Sorry about that. Okay. So 58,000 is only 10.4%. Wow. That's gonna be, but this essentially solidifies our commitment to what we're going to do.
Mr. President, this I guess it does commit you to doing something at Downs Lake, but it also commits you to allowing Washington County to build their project without constructing their own BMPs on the linear project.
And that was gonna be upstream, right?
So, Mr. President, managers, I distributed a permit review memo for the project associated with this. The project is spanning avenue between County Road 10 and the railroad tracks. And the memo basically says the same thing that's included in the MOU here.
Okay. Now, do we need to make a motion for this, Counselor? Okay. So with this one, the memorandum of understanding, the MOU, we're going to sign this, John and I, right? And so we don't require anything here but our signatures.
You need to have a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding.
Oh, yes, ma'am, okay. Yes, sir, go right ahead.
Just a question on it. The iron filter, it's fairly expensive, a budget item. And given that appears we have interest from number of residents that might exceed our funding to where we might need to shift some things around. Does this lock us into a time frame on that though, or can we do the sand filter at a time of our choosing to where we might be able to put that off into the future when funds are available if we were to do some rejiggering?
Mr. President, Secretary Clark, that's a good question. The plan, as discussed with the managers, had been if you're going to do a water quality improvement project at Downs Lake, you would first do it in Lake Allen project.
Yep.
You'd monitor if that provides enough treatment so that the lake then meets its state goals. If it doesn't, then you might consider doing this iron enhanced filtration project upstream. So I guess a question for legal counsel would be number 3 on line 87 on page 2, where it says BBWD may use the $58,000 to fund either a Downs Lake Allen treatment.
You're right.
Or iron enhanced sand filter as part of the Downs Lake water quality project. Do you feel that gives the managers flexibility on 1, not doing a project at all, 2, doing a in Lake Allen treatment project, 3, doing the iron enhanced sand filtration project?
Well, yeah, it has an either or, right? It says it may use the funds, the money, to fund either a Downs Lake Allen treatment or the iron enhanced sand filter. Interestingly enough, I don't see an and. Right, it almost seems like it's a one or the other based on this, if you're gonna do a strict reading of it. Is 58,000 sufficient to do both by your estimate?
But I believe that $58,000 is considered 10% of both projects.
Okay.
And I guess in the whereas on page 2, line 52, says Valley Branch plans to perform an alum treatment of the sediments. It doesn't I don't recall this draft MOU giving the managers any deadline and when you have to do that, if you have to do that 5 years, 10 years, or 50 years. But
Also, the next whereas indicates that if the Allen treatment doesn't work, then we look at iron enhanced sand filter.
I just didn't want this to lock us into something we decided we didn't want to do down the road, so.
We're okay. I think we're okay.
That sounds like we're good.
Very good, sir. Thank you for scrutinizing that. Yes, sir.
Could we just simply change the wording to say that we'll use the $58,000 according to whatever plan might be best for improving the water quality of Downs Lake? So it could be some combination of a iron and sand filter or alum treatment or whatever it might be.
Counselor?
I mean, it's contract, so you can negotiate kind of whatever you want. It's just the county may want something not that loose, right? That's a pretty, whatever is deemed in the best interest of the lake, right? And I think you certainly could propose that language. I wouldn't be surprised if there was pushback to say, we would like something more concrete. Again, as everyone is aware, it's taxpayer dollars, right? So they want some accountability for where those funds are gonna be used. But I think you could certainly modify it to give more flexibility. And like I said, it says, or the iron enhanced sand filter, you could have an and or.
That we may
But that's,
instruct it.
but item number 3 in the no therefore is not consistent with item 2. Item 2 identifies $58,000 for iron enhanced and says nothing about alum treatment.
An alum treatment.
So
Mr. President, Vice President Farah, if I recall correctly, it's been a while since this was drafted and it went back and forth with Washington County and SPAR and Dallas Olson. I think the 58,000 is based on the sand filter cost, not the alum cost, and not the combination of both of them. Because that gives Valley Branch more money. If you only do it on the alum, I think it's like 10% of that. So I think it's closer to about $10,000 that the president's done. So I think here Washington County has agreed $58,000. And what this MOU is trying to say is that Valley Branch may use that $58,000 to do either the inlet alum or the sand filter. You get up to some of the whereases and it gives the impression that you're really going to do the inlet alum.
So I'm going back to Tyler Wilson's presentation, and I don't know that we saw the details in that presentation. If we did, I'm not recalling them. Do we have is our analysis of the loading of the Downs Lake, is it clearly indicating that something like iron sand might be high probability that it's going to be needed?
No, and so that was the conclusion that he presented to you, is that inlet alum is the best bang for the buck.
Right.
And that could get you to the state goal, but it's really, really close. And so if you want to do something to treat the water coming in at Downs Lake, the best thing for your buck is this iron enhancing filtration system just upstream of Downs Lake. And so that's why both of these are talked about, because the manager talks about, well, we'll maybe do the inlet alum and monitor that, see how it goes, and then maybe do the iron enhanced filtration. That's what had been discussed with Washington County, is that instead of them doing their own stormwater treatment, they would work with the Watershed District to implement those projects.
And so that is revitalizing my fuzzy memory on it. But it just seems to me that this is pushing us more towards an iron enhanced sand filter that we may not need if alum really works.
Yes, sir.
I have a nuts and bolts procedure question. The $58,000 that we're talking about, were they just going to give us that with the promise that we're going to do this work, or do we do the alum treatment, and then we give them, we'd say, hey, we just spent this amount of money on alum treatment, so, 20,000 of the $58,000, you give that to us now. And then if we don't do the sand filter down the road, the other 38,000 just doesn't happen. I'm just curious.
Secretary Brockett's, so it's $58,000, you can do whatever you want with it. And suggested site-specific condition number 2 in the memo says, what Washington County needs to pay you $58,000 upfront.
Okay,
Boom, it's not a reimbursement.
yeah, so that, I think if I was Washington County, I would just want to be making sure that we weren't just taking 58,000 because we can and didn't. So, yeah.
I'm thankful that they're providing us with that much, it's a tough situation. Okay. So,
So it sounds like there's some tweaking that needs to be done.
how's that?
And what I'm seeing that would be to clarify that the funds are going to be given to the district and the district has discretion to use them for an alum to pay toward the cost of an alum treatment and or an iron enhanced sand filter. And that's where the discretion of the district comes in. But there's,
But doesn't it already say that in therefore, line 3, we may use the 58 for either a Downs Lake alum treatment or the iron enhanced filter.
and
It's just calculated based on the iron filter, but you can use it either way.
But don't you think that's not consistent with item 2? Because item 2 is just speaking to the sand filter. It doesn't
That's what the
say
cost
anything
is
about the
based
alum.
off of.
I think we go back to the county and ask them, why is item 2 not consistent
No,
with item 3?
item two is what you want, you get more money from the county. That's what the cost is based off, the sand filter. Item 3 is you can use that money to
Okay.
do either the sand filter or the inlet alum.
That might be, that $58,000 is cheaper for them than doing the BMPs on the road construction by a long way.
Otherwise, they would not be entertaining this at all.
Right.
Right,
So
but
we're
it's
actually
still,
saving
it's
them.
still awkward language to me. The county has agreed to pay $58,000 for the estimated cost of the iron enhanced sand filter.
I think if I can paraphrase in what John said, the purpose of number 2, the now therefore number 2, is to indicate how did they come up with the amount of 58,000. And that's the justification for how the county derived the number of 58,000. And that number was determined based on the estimated cost of the iron hand sand filter. So I do see what you're saying, Don, and that makes sense. I also think it is defensible to say that 58,000 can be used that there is discretion by Valley Branch. Could it be clearer? Probably. Does this language get the message across? Yes. So I think it's just the comfort of the managers of how it is drafted.
Well, if for no other reason, to save cost for any potential legal involvements or back and forth wrangling with the county, I think it's just fine.
I just personally, I just don't want the county to feel snookered if we don't do the iron enhancement project. And
I'm not expecting you to do that. This doesn't say you'll do the iron enhanced. This says you'll do the inlet alum.
yeah, and will we spend 58,000 on the inlake alum? Okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
All right. I didn't know, it's a small area. I didn't know if this one was gonna reach that level. or
Yes,
not.
sir. What did we drop on Goose Lake by chance so far?
More than $58,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least $150,000?
Yeah,
We got a
and that was a
grant.
much
We got a
bigger
grant
lake.
for that.
Yeah. Holy cow. Okay.
Okay,
So-
I'm good.
If everybody is satisfied, I would like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding between the Valley Branch Watershed District and Washington County regarding stormwater treatment for Washington County State and Highway CSAH 15 project. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 It is approved. We need to sign. Now, the next one is, I would like to make a motion to approve permit 2025-05. Do I have a second?
Second?
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 That is approved. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay. Now, Counselor, would you like some signatures or wait till the meeting?
I'll grab them at the end.
Thank you very much. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. All
Rick,
right.
did you second that motion for the permit?
Yes, we did.
John,
John.
John,
did.
thank
For the
you.
permit.
Yeah,
I
for
did
the permit, I did.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. All right, then. The environmental assessment workshop. Okay, John, I've got a couple of things here. Since my Ed Marchand signature is on this, let's look at, if we may, line, again, this is just a personal thing. There's nothing wrong here. There's no wrongdoing. On line 6, the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has been very slow at requiring 3M. I would like to change that language a little bit and reflect that, that it's been, if we could provide some concision, or that is, make it concise, if I'm using the proper word, to make that reflect the 17 years. So sort of, it's taken 17 years for this to take place. Our concern, that sort of thing. Does that make sense? Is that an easy rewrite?
do you have a suggestion? Because it took 3 sentences to say that.
Okay, I know, okay, I get it. We could say as the EA states, okay, if we remove that sentence entirely, 6 and 7, we could say, as the EA states, MPCA issued the Minnesota decision document for the Oakdale disposal site in 2008. So since 2008, the MPCA has known that the site is spreading PFAS contamination to Valley Branch Watershed District waters. 17 years, as a matter of fact. While the proposed project is expected to reduce PFAS leaving the site, it will not eliminate it. I believe that to be sufficient. How does that appeal to everybody?
Well, for my legal training,
Yes, sir.
they said don't use exclamation points and things,
Okay.
so,
So-
you know, maybe excellent other than that.
I like that, thank you, okay?
Just hold it instead.
Yeah.
He's all over it.
I guess I kind of like expressing the frustration
You do?
in the
Okay.
sentence that's there.
Well,
You know,
Italics.
that we're anxious with,
Underline.
you know, not the exclamation point, but
I just-
that, you know,
Yeah,
MPCA has been slow.
I am
I
clearly.
mean, I don't want to irritate them, but I also
Right,
want to make
that's,
it
that's always
clear.
my concern, because, you know, I don't know, I put my foot in my mouth many times, you know, I'm highly opinionated, big surprise.
Yeah,
And I gotta be careful with everything that I say. I'm gonna be signing this, and somebody might look at this and go, oh, yeah?
that's
You know?
good.
Uh,
Well, you know, I guess I'd be okay with saying it's been a very slow process.
Okay,
You know,
that's excellent.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's not
It
necessarily
has been a very slow
blaming them,
process.
but that it still expresses the frustration.
It does, it has
You
been
know,
a
it's
very
kind of
slow
like the
process.
17
Okay.
years exclamation point,
Yeah,
you know.
so the pollution control agent has delivered a very slow process requiring 3M to address the problem. I don't know, that doesn't sound,
No, you leave out MPCA.
yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What if you just take out, so since 2008, and you just write the MPCA has known that the site is spreading PFAS contamination to Valley Branch waters for 17 years.
I like that one. That makes it easier.
Yeah.
I think.
Mhm.
Just delete. Is that good, John? You got that?
I got that.
All right. Yeah.
Do we even need 17 years? Because it happened in 2008 and it's still ongoing.
But the 17-year part is where we get our barb.
You don't want to have to require them to do math.
I did the math in my head.
On that one.
Universal language.
Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Yes, sir.
I have one other suggestion on page 2, line 36.
Okay.
The sentence about the project should not exacerbate. That sentence to me could be read two ways. One way, we're rendering an opinion that it shouldn't be a problem, you know?
Right.
And so,
Okay, thank you.
so I'd suggest we say something like the project needs to ensure that water levels are not increased or something along those lines so that they can't read into it that we don't think it's a problem.
Yes, thank you, exactly.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. Thank you for observing that. I thought that was okay, but I think we're trying to be prudent. You know, this whole thing about kid gloves, but it's not just that. It's treating everybody with respect because we're trying to achieve something, and humans have thoughts and emotions and all that. That's another subject that is not part of this realm, I think. Thank you for pointing that out. Is that good, John? Remove the exact, did you?
Yes, I agree with that change.
Yeah, righteous. Okay. Otherwise, I do not have anything else. And with those modifications, you require a motion or direct you to submit this letter. Counselor?
I don't think a motion is.
Okay. So with the changes made, I move that we provide Miss Horton with the 3M surface water diversion letter. Is that sufficient?
Signed by
Yeah.
President Marshall.
Signed by President Marchand. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second?
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, John, we can move forward with that. Okay. So that's squared away. Education funding request. All right. Would the managers like an explanation on this one? I'm gonna go on a limb and say that this is a no-brainer. You think because I don't have a brain?
I was gonna ask which way.
Yeah. I can't win, I can't win. Holy cow. Does anybody need a brief explanation of what's happening here? John, give us a very short overview. What's essentially happening here?
So Belleville Conservancy has been working with for decades with the St. Paul's School District and busing out students and getting some hands-on science outdoor learning. And they'd like to expand that program to the Stillwater School District. Almost all of Valley Branch Watershed District, or at least the eastern 4/5 of Valley Branch Watershed District is in the St. Stillwater School District. And a lot of Johns Creek Watershed District is also in the Stillwater School District. And so talked about partnering to help bring that St. Paul School District program to the Stillwater School District program. Managers have seen some of the high school students from Stillwater come in and talk about the sampling that they've done on Valley Creek. Jeff was out there a month ago with them. They do that sampling, and it seems like it's a good experience for them to learn about water, learn about how different land uses could affect water and the critters that live in the water.
Education,
Seems like
education.
the $5,000 request here is not excessive. Managers have funded school children to go to it's called the annual water fest at State Fairgrounds in the past, and have
State.
funded some other requests. So it doesn't seem like a huge request. The executive director from Bellwin Conservancy did put together a scope, and that's included in the packet.
Yep.
With the detail and the curriculum. And she also sent their 2024 annual report that is included.
Okay.
If I might.
Yes, sir, please.
If you may recall, maybe about a year and a half ago, so they built a new outdoor education facility there. So that's what helps kind of prompt this, because they had limited area to teach in. And then part of their, as John mentioned, their initial mission was set up was for the St. Paul schools. As a local resident who sent, for the kids, our kids went all the way up to Marine for outdoor learning. And we're busing kids from Stillwater up to Marine, or from even Afton Lakeland School, all the way up to Marine, because there wasn't access. They didn't have capacity, whatever it might be. So, as a local resident, I'm like, this is great. This is, learning in their backyard. I think it's fantastic. So that's just my little plug. I'm like, yes, thank you. It's about time, that the Stillwater School District gets access to this. Because it is a good program there.
The page right before the 2024 annual report is a breakdown of what their anticipated expenses are, and they total $157,000. And if you add up the funders identified, you can see that is less than 157. So if the managers would like to fund more than the $5,000 request, I'm sure that Bellwin would appreciate that.
So at this point, I could ask Rick, if you happen to know, I think we might have the report for our education funding. We can easily make the 5,000.
Also, Mr. President, this is for the school year 2025 through 2026.
Okay.
And so you could split out funding if you want to give funding for this fall, or you could give the funding, I guess, in 2026 and plan for that in the 2026 budget.
I'm thinking that we provide these monies now, and then when 2026 comes around, we can revisit it, and I don't think that would be a problem. This is a win-win. This is important for us, and it goes with what Mr. Geldman has been pushing for, which I think is important, and the other managers are on board with. And education, especially something like this,
Yeah, I think it's a good.
pays big
And
dividends in the future, I think. Yeah, so if the managers do not have any further comments or questions or discussion, I would like to make a motion. And that motion is to approve $5,000 funding for the 2025-2026 school year to Bellwin Conservancy to provide outdoor science learning for approximately 1,800 students in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in the Stillwater School District. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 Hi.
Thank you, gentlemen. That is approved. Okay, John. Make that so. Right. Cost share, what are we doing? This one, impervious surface changes. Oh. Okay, the next one we're doing is the impervious surface changes. to the district. I think I opened my mouth about this one. I don't know if anybody else had any comments or interest, but this is interesting for me. At this point, there doesn't seem to be too much to it except for what is obvious. It is very clear that if you look on the third, figure 3, the changes to impervious surface in the last, oh my goodness, in the last 20 years, 19 years, seems dramatic. That is my opinion. I don't know if everybody agrees with me. So, I want to use some silly analogies, like when that fellow was able to use the tubes to what ultimately became television. I'm not on any level, but they didn't know what to do with it at first, and then ultimately they said, hey, we can apply this to this technology, and voila, we had television. Okay, so what this seems to me is something that we could consider in the future for budgets and to look at as part of a database, to couple this with other items to see if something can be done with the change in the impervious surface. In other words, it could be something that's educational that we can provide the public with, or something we can implement to help devise, if possible, more judicious or more, what's the word? To make changes possibly in policy or what we're doing about what's happening. But it's clear to me that we've got a bunch of urbanization taking place, and we're gonna have to be, in my opinion, more careful or more thoughtful about what we're gonna do. Yes, sir.
Engineer Hanson might have numbers close at hand, but
Yeah,
I'm quite certain that native plants put water in the ground much more efficiently than turf bricks.
boom. Yeah, I can't argue with that. So it's something that is going to affect our relationship with Washington Conservation District. In other words, we have something here that we can utilize to our advantage. And our advantage is to help the community, help our resources, and help make us the good stewards that we are and why we're here. So it might sound like a little rah-rah, but that's why I wanted this to take place. That's why I wanted to see this. But I'm sure you gentlemen were aware of what's happening. Even you, counselor.
I have a couple of comments.
Please.
This is really great information to
Yeah.
be able to see that change, the sequence of changes and stuff. Something that I think would even give us a better notion of, or maybe a different notion of what the change is to subtract one map from another. So if you subtract 1985 from 2004, or any of the sequences there, then that highlights the areas that have changed in that time period directly on one map, rather than my having to kind of go from the 85 map to the 2004 map and try and, I can do it in general terms,
Right.
but I can see it more specifically, you know, oh, that's where all the development occurred. And the other part is to see the numbers, the totals,
Yes,
you know,
yes, I asked
especially
you
on
about that. We're
impervious
working on
surfaces stuff to see.
We're
You know,
working
how,
on that.
you know, because that boils down to, a soundbite kind of thing
Yeah.
that people maybe can remember a lot easier.
It's, you know,
Is,
yeah.
you know, we've had a 2% increase in pervious surface in the past
Yes.
20 years, or whatever it is. And I think that can boil it down to a real useful
Right.
piece of information. But
I
this is powerful.
I really appreciate the way it was presented. Thank you for doing this, but yeah, we want to look at numbers too, to see what's happening and see, you know, like Ronnie Dangerfield, I want to see more graphs, you know. We want to see these changes, numerical changes, to help us understand what is happening in our community. I think
Mhm.
we're looking towards the future. It's not about just maintaining what we have. We have to think ahead. We're not going to be here forever. Anyway, very useful, very well executed. And I can just think of a million other things, but, you know, judicious use of taxpayer money at this point. This is a start for this sort of thing.
I think it helps us understand what the situation is, and that goes a long ways to informing our decisions.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Everything we're doing. And I've received, by the way, Richard Throne, who was involved in the, what was that project where the young fellow wanted us to give him 10 grand and we ended up giving him 7 grand. They're absolutely ecstatic. And they've also been, Mr. Throne reported this just the other day. They've been removing stumps so that it doesn't damage mowing equipment, et cetera, and they're trying to create, they had the base for the impervious surface that was already done. So this is happening, and they're very happy with us and what we've committed, so it's a good thing. Yes, sir.
I gotta ask you, were those old growth stumps?
He just doesn't want to run over anything, just leave it at that. Yeah. So they're, no. What did he call them? We're, like box elders. I've chopped down box elders and left the stumps, and
Yes.
now it looks like a bush.
Mhm.
So maybe something like that, I don't know. I didn't ask that, but he was very happy that we were involved in doing that.
Yeah, great.
Okay, any further comments from the managers, including you, Mr. Inspector?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I found it really interesting.
Yeah. It's a start, huh? I mean, it's something that we're more or less aware of, and I won't waste any more of your time, but this is information that we're gonna hold on to and get more to help us. Okay, thank you, everybody. Cost share project signage. These look pretty good. John, Mr. Engineer, what are these going to cost us? Is there an added cost for doing these things?
As for that, I don't know the cost.
Is it gonna
What it
be-
would cost, I would guess it'd be not very much. They could probably put them on some stiff boards, cardboard or something, and some wrap and put them in. But I could contact Alyssa Thompson to know, or to find out what your estimate is for the cost.
Please do that, and then we'll look at other parameters, you know, because now I'm thinking people are not gonna use it for graffiti or something, or, you know, whatever. I want people to know we exist. This is my narcissistic display here. Yes, sir.
I just had a question about it. One, it seems like one is, this project was designed with assistance from, and the other one is, this project was installed. So it seems to me like we would have them combined into one, this project implemented with,
Yes.
or this project was installed. I mean, if it's just designed and not installed, there's nothing to have a sign by. So why not just have this project was installed with? It was just something I didn't understand the need for two signs.
No, you're right. She was giving us examples, and that's a good one, but I think, well, this is good input. I wasn't thinking about rewriting the signs or anything, but perhaps she can come up with another example or two while she's considering the cost and implementation and all that stuff, how much more that'll set us back, what's it worth to us? Neon,
I mean,
make it a neon. Yeah, sorry.
I mean, it seems like this one covers it. I didn't understand the need for the design.
Yeah. Because we didn't do that.
So just,
I'd be okay with just going with the
just
Yeah.
the one.
installed one.
We'll give that feedback and ask for a cost.
Yes, sir, please, thank you. Gentlemen, are we okay with this one? Mr. Inspector?
Yeah.
Your opinion, you like it?
Yeah.
You're gonna be seeing this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. All right then.
And the second one, they could just change design to support it.
I like that
That could
too.
be either technically supported or funded, really by cost share or whatever.
That's right. Okay, we're squared away on that one. Thank you, sir. Okay. Attorney.
So in your packet, you have a memorandum that Tori drafted. She has taken the lead with communicating with potential sellers of property to the district. And so there's going to be a closed meeting at the next meeting on June 26th. So there really isn't anything to really discuss or have any action on. But she wanted to give you an update of what she's done in the meantime.
Excellent.
And then the one additional piece of information is June 4th, she had received responses from everyone except one property owner. She has now received responses from all of them. So she'll provide more update at the next meeting.
Excellent.
And then just considerations, and it's kind of great that the managers were just looking at the policy that they have in place for purchasing low homes, but at the present moment, potentially, there are more people who want to sell homes than there are funds currently available. So part of what the managers will be advised to do is come up with some criteria for why, which homes. And so more, the questions or the considerations are at the end, just to get your brains working, but there's a lot to think about. This is not an exhaustive list of things to consider.
No.
So,
Okay.
any questions on that?
Yes, regarding the criterion, I thought that maybe we had that established already. Regarding priority, who is in the greatest danger of experiencing flooding, that sort of thing.
But we kind of lost some of that, because we said all these homes qualify and
Right.
it got to be a pretty big group and there's no distinction between first come, first served versus furthest down in the water,
Yeah.
or
But I
some
think-
other criteria.
I think those might be viable items, the first come, first serve, and of course, who's got the greatest danger of coming into contact with the
But
water.
I think it's worthwhile
Yes,
deciding that, and I think that's your point, is deciding what the criteria are before.
Yep, so just
You make
think
a
about that,
decision.
right?
Yeah.
We're not
Okay.
asking you to decide that tonight.
okay,
Right.
But we'll be asking you to, if you're gonna make an offer to purchase and there are more people interested in selling than there are funds to purchase homes, I think it would be logical that there's a basis for why the district is
Yes,
making its
ma'am.
offers. So it's more just to prep you that conversation is coming down.
well, while we're on this, bringing up this issue today with Ms. Thomas' property, how soon can our engineer and our attorney go over this material so that we can make a determination or vote on whether we want to have the property appraised?
I had in my notes that the direction was for engineering and council to communicate and bring something to the next
Okay. so the
meeting in
next
2
meeting-
weeks.
The next 2 weeks, so by the 26th? That sounds reasonable, yes? Okay. All right. Please tell Miss Tori that she's doing a very nice job.
I will.
Yes, sir.
So when Susanna said that there's more interest in property owners to buy than we have funds available,
Right.
are those funds specifically the remaining balance on the bonds from?
It's for other measures. There's bond money, there's other money. You have reserves in other funds. So without knowing the details of how many people would like Valley Branch to purchase, I think those details are needed to determine. You might have enough budget this year if you do some moving around.
Okay.
Or maybe some of the people don't want to move right away and are interested in getting a certain percentage of the money up front and later. So
Okay.
I think there's a lot of options for the ranchers to
Okay.
discuss.
Good, thank you. Yes, sir, go ahead.
Just a quick question. So for the closed meeting, next meeting, will we have a sense from Tori as far as which owners would like to postpone and not
Yes,
move right away?
that was, so she
Okay.
sent out an email specifically asking that question. Who
Okay.
is in, like, what timeline are you looking for? You know, and she and I have done some discussion because frankly, it's only been, all purchases were immediate except for two. And one was the Lovitz, which was discussed for, I think, maybe
Right.
9 months, That's right?
Yeah.
So that was a big conversation.
Yeah.
That was not a decision that was determined lightly. The other was a 16-month wait so that somebody could, I don't know if it was to find another
They built
home
another
or
house. They
someone
built-
who was elderly and was moving out. So, but I apologize, someone else.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay.
I just interrupted you and I mentioned Sunnybrook Lake. Go
Oh,
right
okay.
ahead.
So, but there are, I think, a fair number of property owners that may be interested in wanting some time, but Tori's gonna put that list together, but also think about how does that come into play with your, you know, I mean, it's hard to make a determination without the information. I get that. I'm just saying, just be prepared that these are some of the questions that may come up in your discussion next meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Without a doubt.
One more question.
Yes, go
We
right
could
ahead.
Discuss the open, assuming we get a whole line of homes on Legion Pond, is Lake Elmo lukewarm, or are they expressing any interest in having that property for open space or park or anything?
We did meet with like almost staff a couple months ago. They are not interested in having that as a park. We're looking at whether it's feasible to, if the managers were to resell those lots and after putting conservation easement on them, we're looking at whether it'd be feasible to rebuild on those lots, maybe joining. So instead of 4 lots, it's 2 lots or something like that. And if they're able to put a slab on grade home, if they'd have enough space to meet like Elmo rules, because that kind of information would be helpful for potential buyers to know. It's like, okay, we think it's buildable, or we don't think it's buildable at all.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that is a good question, and we can't just necessarily give it to the county. Yeah, it's gonna sit in limbo, and we certainly want to do something about it, because if we don't, we have to pay taxes on that, don't we? Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're also assuming
Mow
the
ground.
liabilities.
You do, there is, and this was done on most, if not all of the Sunnybrook properties, you
Yeah.
can apply to not have to pay taxes as a government entity. And that application has to be submitted and done, and then you wouldn't pay taxes on it, but until that time, of course, that can all be part of the purchase agreement discussion, right?
Yeah.
Is, are the sellers paying taxes for the remaining year? Typically, they're prorated. That would be the standard to do.
Right.
This is an unusual situation in which the district is paying market value for property that arguably isn't marketable at the same value that as you heard with the property owners here, they don't really feel there's much value to their land. And yet the district may end up paying what would be deemed fair market value if it wasn't in a flood zone. So as with any purchase agreement, the terms are negotiable.
Right.
But the standard would be to prorate taxes. The district could make it a requirement to say, we want the seller to pay taxes for the remainder of the year.
Right.
And then you can apply to not pay taxes starting next year if the district is still the owner of the property.
Okay, so sounds like it might be a busy summer. Something to consider. Okay. Well, at least we covered some of this stuff. All right, sufficient?
All right. So
Counselor, do you have anything else?
I do, item number 2, it's a
Yes, ma'am.
license agreement. So this was a handout that was at your places. So
Yeah.
this is an attorney item because I drafted it, but Engineer Hanson is also heavily involved in the conversation. Because
Okay.
it sounds like MnDOT has requested some of the district's models that Bar Engineering has prepared. I don't really know why they want them, but the license agreement goes through, basically says MnDOT can obtain them, utilize them, it lists what are they getting, and then has really just caveats that protect the district, right? To say, if MnDOT for some reason found a mistake, they're obligated to notify the district. The district is not liable for anything once it leaves it, like as far as updating information or, right? And also has some restrictions that MnDOT cannot share the information unless that third party, I mean, it can with some people, but they need to sign an agreement that they're abiding by the terms of this license. So just a reminder, a license is an agreement for use of something, but it can be revoked pretty much at any time. This has a 30-day notice requirement, but it's that's the idea behind it, is saying, MnDOT, you can use this information that the district has generated or the district's engineers have generated.
We're indemnifying?
More or less, yes.
Okay.
Yep. I won't say more or less. Yes, there's indemnification.
I really like that.
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Do you anticipate, John, that we would just hand them the files and there's not going to be a cost to us for bar or staff to work with them to explain the files, if you will? I just want to make sure.
It's a good question, yeah.
That's an excellent question, because it's really not clear how MnDOT's going to be able to use these files. They're requesting these files for all metro watershed districts, and it's really unclear who will be able to operate these files.
Yeah.
And what kind of questions they're trying to answer by obtaining these files. Because originally the request was that they're working on a extreme flood vulnerability tool. And then they modified the request to ask for more modeling information and GIS information, and study information, and just all models are created to answer a specific question. So Valley Branch Watershed District's models were made to determine what the flood levels were of various low areas in the district. It's not clear if our models will be able to answer the questions that we're trying to answer. Right? So it will take time and effort to pull together all these models, because the watershed district has different model for each sub-watershed. And so there's dozens of models that are that have state highways within them. That I think is what they're interested in mostly. So it'll take effort to pull them together. And then if they do start work trying to run them, and then they have questions, then I guess we want direction from the board if you want us to provide answers, or say they're as is and we need to figure it out.
Because my experience with hydraulic modeling is, if MnDOT wanted to use some of our data, they ought to just hire Bar and get our permission to use the data.
I like that.
Because I think they're just gonna be fumbling personally. Maybe not, but
No, that's right. Bar is gonna wanna get paid for their services and MinDOT's
Yeah.
fumbling something around.
so I'm okay with this as long as, we're just handing them files and we're not incurring costs to providing support for them to understand how to use it.
And so it's actually in bold on like page 4, so pretty much right in the middle, but it's the limited warranty, like it's all saying what you get is what you get. There's no guarantee that what you want it for, right, that this is gonna suffice for whatever the purposes that you want it for. I think the caveat, and this is gonna be more kind of gatekeeping at bar, is if they say, we really don't have authority to spend time to educate you on what this is, you know? And then that's maybe, I don't want to speak for you, John, but maybe that's some of the direction that's helpful.
Well, I think when that time comes, we would, so
Yes.
we need to get authorization from the board.
Yeah.
before we can
Yeah.
Revisit it.
You
And
said
I
they-
think our response would be, you guys hire Bar. You know,
Yeah,
Mr.
I
Bill?
was just gonna say, they've requested, I mean, that's requested these from other districts as well. Do you have any indication of how other districts are handling the situation?
Well, this license agreement is based on a license agreement from the Rutherford First Watershed District. I know that they've also communicated with Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District. The Ramsey Washington Metro Watershed District met with them, provided them all sorts of reports, and then it was kind of radio silence from MinDOT until more recently when we come back on the actual model. They've also, BAR represents Bass Creek Watershed Management Commission. They've requested models from them. They've requested models from 9 Mile Creek Watershed District. So they're now in the data gathering stage of this project. But it's, like I said, it's a little bit of I question how they'll be able to use these models.
Well, as you pointed out, if something comes up, we become aware of it, and then we can make decisions about how it's gonna be handled. And hopefully not with our taxpayer, but what we require. Is that good enough, Counselor? What do we need to do here?
Actually, I'm sorry, I have a question for John, if you don't mind.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Are you comfortable, like, you said the models are for a question to be answered, are you, I mean, you're the most, maybe not you personally, but are the most intimately familiar with what they're asking. Is there some reason you would be worried about giving it to MinDOT?
Well, it's really unclear how they're going to use the models and what they're going to do with the models. I guess my concern with the previous draft license agreement that they were given and they modified, basically said they can give our models to anybody. Like, well, I'm not comfortable with that. So there needs to be a little bit of control over who has the models so that when changes are made, or everybody knows who made the original model and who made the modifications. So this MOU covers that. I also like that Attorney Forsyth added a deadline in here in the term of 2.1. I think it's a 5-year timeframe, because these models are constantly changing. As soon as we give them to them, they're going to be updated.
Right. Mr. Bill, did you have anything to add?
No?
Right on. Yes, sir.
I just have a naive question. These models were created with public resources, aren't they already in the public domain anyways?
Yeah, I mean, they would be subject to a public data request if someone did one. Yeah. If the district has paid for them to be done, they would be subject to that. Arguably. I'd have to think of, I mean, I'd kind of have to think about that a little bit if there's any proprietary, but I think it would be subject to a public data request.
But with a lot of data requests, you can provide them a report, you don't have to necessarily provide them the electronic file.
Yeah, it's the right to inspect,
Right on.
that is,
Pay to play? No. Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
So I guess what I would ask, so the reason I in particular wanted this to come before you, is it says things like the district has determined, right? So
Yep.
I would actually like, something that the managers, have looked at this, and how quickly do they want this, John? Is this something that could,
I'm fine with delaying until the managers have time to review. They have been making this request starting in early March.
okay,
Oh,
um,
that's quite a time span.
yeah.
That's good.
But since it does have determinations, I think it would make sense that the managers have time to review this and,
Okay.
and put it on the agenda at the next meeting. And I can it's probably smart to put a resolution together.
Oh, okay. So is that'll be
Authorizing,
coming up.
authorizing that this license needs to be executed anytime models are provided to MinDOT, just for purposes of even having a paper trail of what's been provided,
Right. So we're not doing anything this evening, correct?
Correct.
All right. We squared away, Counselor?
Yep,
Okay, thank you very much. That's all done. Mr. Inspector?
Yes, President, my fund managers, there is a report that's in the packet. I do have some updates. I can address any questions you have. Gardner School has completed the punch list to move towards permanent closing. I think we just have to have a review of legal, anything to do with easements, which I'm not sure if there is any because of storm sewer. I'm not sure because of the way the storm sewer is set up in that development, but there might be something. And then I think the as-bills have to be reviewed. If they finish sodding and taking care of the perimeter of the site, it all looks good. There are no storm sewer facilities on site other than catch basins that direct the water towards the development's infiltration basin. So there's why I don't know legally what has to be reviewed, but to be determined. I met this morning with the Lake Elmo Solar Array folks on Lake Elmo Avenue. The project manager was on site along with their restoration specialist. They had to make a couple of repairs by the infiltration basin. The site perimeter is fully vegetated in the inside the fence, because I can't go in there without them because it's a secure area, is coming along but slowly, and I think that's just because of the way the season's going. But it looks good. I would expect that should be able to move towards closing here sometime in the next month or so. And it turns out that the gentleman who takes care of the restoration of that site also owns the Afton Solar, which of course I had just inspected, and so I had questioned. I never get a 2-for-1 like that. You could ask one guy about both sites, so he was aware of my concerns over there. They have some stabilization to do, so no issues there. Rock Point Church, the parking lot area has started. That project started, and so no issues there. But they did start here this last week.
It's a massive parking lot, right?
It's a big park. Well, they moved, it's not as, if you look at the stakes, when you see the stakes, you'll realize it's not quite as big as the area that's cleared. They had to remove all the topsoil.
Right.
And then they had to create a drainage swale to the existing basin. So it looks massive, but it's probably half of what they removed. They'll put that topsoil back. So they have some more grading to do. But yeah, it does look really big. Silver Lake outlet is pretty consistent in the level. It's running about 7 inches over the gate. I did note today that there is a dead ash tree. It's kind of one tree that's kind of split. And there's a smaller elm tree that looks like it's dying. The ash looks like it's dead. I don't know who owns responsibility because they're both right on the channel edge. If that's us, if that's a MnDOT thing, if it's a Maplewood thing or a North St. Paul thing.
Who
They haven't come down, but they will. At some point the ash tree will come down.
what's gonna be the consequence of that?
Well, it's not leaning towards the outlet.
Okay,
The ash tree kind of leans actually more probably towards the road.
oh.
So of course, MnDOT would have that.
Yeah.
And the elm tree's just kind of out on the edge, towards the water. I don't really know which way to go, but just one of those things you just noted today that, oh, look at that. Because we've had some trees come down in the past. And I believe MnDOT cleared it up, or the city of North St. Paul did.
I don't think it would be North St. Paul, it would be Maplewood.
Maplewood, someone did it for us. So just something I'm keeping an eye on, like, oh, those ash trees, when they get to that state, they can kind of drop anytime. So I'm sure it's annual ash or stuff, so.
Yeah.
Just something I wanted to note,
Mhm.
and, I guess if there were any questions that anybody has.
I do, Tablin Park PFAS station. So I drove by and they're more or less packed up.
What?
Right?
I didn't drive by the last couple of days. Last
Yeah.
week, it was still there. I saw somebody was there. Was it still there?
They removed the fencing as far as I know.
Okay,
And they've got it all boxed up, like
Okay.
they're gonna haul it out and,
yeah, they're supposed to pull it out and they'll just restore that area. So I know they were in the process, but I didn't really see. I didn't go by there this
Just-
week.
I know this isn't you're responsible for this, but what happened? They did the foam fractionator, we haven't heard a word. What happened? Whatever. Okay. The next one, the Star Trek machines in the airport.
Airport, yeah.
I've seen them working. Do you notice anything?
No, I mean, I think they need to provide the monitoring information that they do at the end of each season. I think the results last season were not quite what we were looking for.
Yeah.
I'm
The
not
water-
sure.
The water's up.
Yeah, the water's up, so they're up and running. They had issues last year with somebody went out and was shutting them down.
Oh,
Somebody, I'm not sure who, was shutting down one or two of the systems.
well, they're not chasing the geese away. then.
Which I think, I don't know if that's federal or state, but I would think that's federal, right? That's a serious, it's a serious thing to be monkeying around with operations within an airport, so. I know they had some issues with that last year. Other than that, I think it's just business as usual. I didn't see anything flowing in the ditches or anything.
No.
We had that much rain.
I drive by on 30th on occasion. And I point that out to the boss lady and she goes, what's that for? I go, I don't know yet. Just, that's all.
The roadway crossing the railroad within the Easton Village complex
Right.
is staged. I think it's one of those interesting things when you're working with the railroad, how many contractors and communications and things there are to do something. I mean,
Really?
the emails are endless and like, oh, everything's staged and it's like, nothing's happening, right? So, but they have to bore, utilities underneath it. They have to build a new crossing. It's amazing how much is tied to just doing a crossing of the railroad.
Yeah, I wonder how far along they are over here on Osgood, I believe. I don't know if that's a part of our realm.
Oh,
They're
there's
right off the 14. with-
yeah, Middle St. Croix.
Yeah.
They're close, they're working on the street light, or the
Oh, yeah.
signals, last time I
Okay.
was over there.
I have a question, John, that development that was near here down the road, is anything circled back to that? I think we had people show up at one point talking about that, is that kind of falling
Avon
apart?
Township rejected it because it needed more than one access point.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
So nothing's going on there.
It's busy in Woodbury, as usual, things are busy over there. The new Manning Apartments is up and working, if you've driven on Manning, across from the sailboat place there, just
Yeah,
south of 94.
going up the hill a little bit.
Yeah, and so it's an apartment complex, it's kind of building around the one home that's stuck there, so
How many units do you think that is?
I can't remember. It's a lot, it's big, wow, it's really big. So, okay, yeah.
Very good, sir. Do the managers have any questions or comments or anything further? Kate, not hearing anything? Thank you, sir. Appreciate your efforts. Lastly, how are the girls doing?
I have, 2 colonies going. One is phenomenal, the overwintered one. The other one, the new one,
Uh-oh.
is pathetic. So
Oh,
it's like fishing, like, you know.
Yeah.
John catches all the fish on this side of the boat and, Bill catches none on this side of the boat, so I don't know.
can you transplant some action over there?
I don't know.
Okay.
It's just crazy. It's kind of crazy, but yeah, I'm really
They're tribal or something?
optimistic about the results, at least of one. So,
Wow.
and we're not even in the nectar flow yet.
I think the ones in that new colony, they just decided it was more fun. They were having more
Stealing.
fun in the other one.
Stealing,
They
yeah.
just went over there.
It could be, like, that one looks like it's way more fun than the
Yeah.
one there is, kind of boring.
Holy cow. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Okay, managers, anything to report? Don't speak at once. Yes, sir.
So John and I met with our new Commissioner, Beth Cox,
I recall.
on May 29th, and that was an excellent meeting. She's
Okay.
gonna be a quick study in all things water and some kind of perspective, so she was spot on with everything that went into that, so she got it pretty quick. She was director of development for Well Rivers Conservancy and a long list of other professional achievements as well, so that's,
Is she by chance still practicing chiropractic?
I don't know.
I don't know. Just curious. Okay. You said please and thank you and all that?
I did, yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was a struggle, but I was polite. Yeah, and I guess we'll talk about, I'll talk about Minnesota watersheds when we get to that item on future business.
Right. It's gonna be a fun drive, right?
Well, let me, before we get there, let me just say this.
Yeah.
The resolution packet, you have it, you should have it in your email. And I think those comments are due by, I think tomorrow's the deadline. I was up to the wee hours getting through all of them last night, so if you're so inclined, please.
Okay,
This is
thank
the
you.
new program we're doing with a separate meeting, separate from the annual meeting that will be late August, to go through all the resolutions and approve or disapprove them. So, and there's only like 5. Last year was a nightmare. There was, I don't know how many.
Okay,
And there's, Jan actually took a couple that were the permitting issue and attempted to consolidate them into one resolution. So,
very good, sir. That conclude your report?
I related Minnesota watersheds. Jan wasn't able to make it, so I, just before here, I attended, South Washington invited Jan to attend a little open house they had at Hassan Bank Park, which is in Woodbury. It's between, it's a really cool stormwater project. Water comes out of Fish Lake and it's heavily laden with phosphorus. And it was going directly into Powers Lake, which is probably the best remaining deep lake in Woodbury. And this Hassan Bank Park now has a really cool stormwater system. Bar was the John's engineering firm that designed it. It was an associated uplands restoration project to an older section that was associated with it as well.
This is good.
Cool project. If you get a chance to go over there, there's nice pathways and stuff through all of it, so.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's just off of St. John's Avenue, just north of Valley Creek Road.
Anybody we know spearheaded that, or,
I don't think anybody you know.
okay. Oh darn.
Quite a crew present. Frank was there, and Marcy was there. They were the two landscape architects that designed it, and
Okay.
Aaron stopped in as well, so.
Very good, sir. Okay,
Okay, I got.
yes, please,
Um,
Rick.
The Silver Lake Improvement Association met earlier this week.
Okay.
And one of the big issues that took up a lot of the time was, the issue of algae in the lake. And got some good information from Meg about a previous study and passed that on, and people were appreciative of that. There may be questions that go back to Meg, regarding the algae conditions. And I guess I read, somewhere else in one of the minutes or something that quite a few other lakes are also experiencing a similar kind of algae bloom where it's, lots of filamentous algae.
Momentous floaters.
Yeah, they're kind of floating around. Aside from that, a product, there was a discussion about a product that is used instead of an alum treatment called Utrazorb.
Nutrizorb?
Utrazorb, Eutrosorb.
Some sort of chelating agent.
And the big advantage I heard it has is that it locks up the phosphorus and doesn't let go. Whereas with the alum, there's disruption that occurs and you lose the effectiveness of it. And I thought that might be something for us to. I don't know if this is, really the greatest thing in the world, or if it's, not so great. But it might be something that we could consider, if it were a good product to, that fits some of our needs, to investigate.
That sounds real good.
Mhm.
Very quickly, liquid, solid, anything you know about it?
I saw the website and
Follow
it
it up.
looked like it was kind of all of the above, and that they did it at different levels. you know,
Okay,
in the soil underneath the lake, as well as, above that in the water column.
could you by chance send us the website?
Sure,
That would be
I'll
wonderful.
do that.
I'd like to explore that.
Rick, I did, I was at the Silver Lake outlet today, and there was a big algae buildup right at the channel.
Yeah.
Like it was like clogged, it's like,
It's the blob from
It's like
outer
blobs.
space or something.
yeah, it's all, yeah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of it.
Would the residents get in trouble if they just went and poured dicot all over that stuff? No further comment. I see. Never mind.
Well, I thought people responded very well and said, we need to investigate this. And one of the things that came up was, the Valley Branch, checking, the levels of phosphorus in the lake multiple times a year. And, they wanted to see what that information looked like. And referred them to the annual, or not the annual report, but the lake conditions report. And we'll see where that goes. They may even look at wanting to request some additional measurements be taken.
Cool. That's good news.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rick.
Mhm.
Do you have anything else for us?
That's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, Don. Okay. Now, future business, Rick and I will be meeting with Miss Kelly Miller at Starbucks in Maplewood on June 23 at 10 a.m. And, yeah, just thinking of that. Who will be missing our June 26th meeting? Will all the managers be here? June 26th, everybody's gonna be here. What? Wait a minute, what's going on here? Okay,
I get back from Mexico the night before, so.
there you go.
if
I
there's-
knew there was.
If there's a hurricane or something.
Yeah, I knew there was gonna be something.
Other than that, I should be.
Oh my God, you guys.
I read back from the Arctic Circle that day.
Like, here we go.
I knew it. I knew it. I can hardly wait. You guys are a regular National Geographic episode. I love it. Okay. The Watershed Summer Tour, we got that covered.
So,
No, you're
wait,
going
wait,
to.
you didn't talk about July 10th.
Uh-oh.
I have colorful commentary on July 10th.
Oh, what's gonna happen July 10th?
My wife's retirement party.
Oh.
I begged, I pleaded, I negotiated, I tried to get her to move it to Friday, but she's already talking to another coworker who's retiring about the same time. And now it's a joint party, so I felt like telling her, well, have fun. I don't think I'm gonna get away with that. And if I duck out of there early, then she might have to take an Uber home or something, so.
Yeah.
Is everybody else gonna be here on the 10th?
Yeah, but,
So-
we might make a special guest appearance. Who knows?
Well, yeah.
Let's have them have the party here.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I like that thought. We will definitely talk to you before then, but we're happy for her. So the summer tour is squared away. We'll figure that out, right?
well, I think I have maybe one seat available on a car leaving from Eden Prairie from Dave Ziegler's house at 5 a.m. on Tuesday. So
At 8 a.m.
I don't know if that
No,
changes the
I'm not gonna
calculus
be
for
there.
anybody. If you're rational, it doesn't.
Wow. Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right.
We'll let that go for now. Lake McDonald Water Quality Meeting with Lakeshore Owners, Baytown Community, July 8th at 7 p.m. John, if you could give us a reminder, I would certainly like to attend that. That's gonna be interesting. I know some people. We'll see how that goes. And who knows, some people from Cloverdale might be attending as well. Yeah, I will mention it to some.
That's open to all of us if I wanted to attend that?
Yes, sir, it
Okay.
is, yes.
You just probably need to post.
We just can't talk to each other, right? Counselor?
No, if a quorum of the managers is gonna be there, it would be smart to post
Okay, we can
that
do
as a
that.
special meeting.
So before the time comes, when the managers make a decision about attending,
I can just post.
okay,
Since it's gonna be in July 8th, I'll just bring the notice to the June 26th meeting.
perfect.
How long do you think it'll run for? Because I don't know if I get it right at 7, but 2 hours? Okay.
Please,
That's a long time to take,
Yeah.
this attention, so.
I'll bring it. Oh, yeah. Wait. Thank you, Counselor.
Welcome.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, one last time. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Right.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. John,